Hello and welcome to Washington, D.C. for a special edition of This Week in Pennsylvania. I'm Dennis Owens. Today we are sitting down with U.S. Senator John Fetterman, one of the most intriguing political characters in all of Washington since being elected more than a year and a half ago. It's the first time we're talking to him since a pre-election debate against Mehmet Oz, a debate that he says pushed him toward depression. Thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it.
Welcome to D.C. And you're dressed very well.
As are you.
No, we have no dress code here, but you showed so.
Let's begin with your health. You had a recent car crash. How are you and what happened?
Well, it was just so very grateful that after that, there was no serious injuries, and I'm great, of course, as is my wife, and we're just back to back to the usual.
Police have said excessive speed. Have you figured out what exactly happened?
Yeah, well, it's all in the report, and anyone can, if anyone cares about, they can read it.
I know there was a woman that was hit. Have you reached out to her?
Like I said, everything's in the report.
Last time I saw you was at our televised debate, a moment that you've since said sent you into a depression is trying to overcome a stroke afterwards. How are you now, and what have you learned from that last year and a half?
I'm fantastic, and I've been really active and just living a normal life here in D.C. and back in Western Pennsylvania, being a great dad, being a great husband, being hopefully a decent senator, and being very involved in what's going on. So I'm very grateful, and I've been having that conversation on a national conversation about depression, and that if you are feeling those kinds of about that, go get help, and that it's okay, and it's normal to feel that sometimes, and to continue to having that conversation. And I was very lucky, and I got help, and I got better.
How did that ordeal change you? Do you have a sense of how it's made you different?
Well, I thought I was a fairly empathetic person before the stroke and everything happened, but after that, it's become even much in touch with how if a disability or these kind of challenges, and I really decided that whatever that platform that I have is that I'm going to talk about that, and I want to try to be the kind of person that I would have heard when I was going through that, and I try to be that kind of a voice, and I have ongoing conversations and dialogues with people. And whether it's nationally or whether it's just individually, and people have reached out, and I've never thought that it would resonate with that many people, but it's undoubtable. It's an important issue for red county or blue counties, and it's been uniformly appreciated and a good conversation.
You've raised awareness of it, but what can you as a senator do about it? What do you think is job one to try to make change?
Well, we have talking about different kinds of legislation, and we just established the first bipartisan mental health caucus here, and everyone's been incredibly supportive of that. In a town that's it's divided and partisan, everybody agrees that mental health is an important issue that we have to address here in Washington, D.C., and I'm grateful to be a part of that.
Since you become senator, have you had any conversations with Mehmet Oz, the man you beat to become senator?
Crazily enough, we haven't got together. No, I hope he's well.
A lot of progressives voted for you, of course, but after your ardent support for Israel in the war with Hamas, many have buyer's remorse now. What do you say to them? What's your message to those progressives?
Well, I really don't know how that's. I'm not sure if I really agree with that. I think I've been a very consistent Democrat and a vote, and that's what I've been running on. And it wasn't new news. I was running that campaign. I was saying I'm just a regular Democrat. And I don't know why it's controversial to be a strong supporter of Israel. I never understood that, and I still don't. And if they wanted to vote for a weirdo from New Jersey, they could have had that, but I think they should be having buyer's remorse given that. So.
But you mentioned you're more empathetic. Do you not have empathy for the Palestinian folks, many of them innocent, who are dying, and by the thousands more than the ones
Absolutely.
in Israel?
It's tragic. I don't attach more value for a Palestinian child's life than my own. I mean, but we can't forget that this is what Hamas has designed it to do. Hamas started this war in Gaza, and they could end it immediately. They could have ended it months ago, but they designed that to maximize death and the kinds of destruction. In fact, even the leader was saying, that's necessary, and it's a necessary sacrifice, and that's just pure evil. And I don't know why we can't be talking about that more, and instead of it's not the faults for Israel.
Do you think that's going to be an issue in the fall when the students come back to college campus, potentially impacting the election?
I don't know if there's going to be more of the pup tent intifada back on campus, but I don't think that's going to be the defining issue. It's going to be very close as well. We're both based in Pennsylvania, and Trump is very popular. It's going to be close. I do believe that Joe Biden is going to prevail, but it's the same conversation that I've been having since 2016.
Another frustrating pressure point for progressives is your suggestion on securing the border. What do you think is the answer on the border, and how do you help America get there?
Well, once again, two things are true at the same time. I'm an incredibly strong supporter of immigration. In my own family, of course, that was part of their origin story. But we also believe in a secure border. I don't understand why that's controversial for a Democrat to say that we need a secure border as well, too. And I think we should be living that kind of a truth, that we can be very supportive and celebrate immigration. It's what made America, America, but also that we have a secure border. And if we don't, then it's going to destroy our ability to deliver the American dream for all these migrants that we hope that we're able to deliver for them.
Your wife, Giselle, was undocumented as a child. Has she shaped some of your views, and what is her thought? Does she give you any thoughts on what you've been saying on this topic?
Well, she was a dreamer. And of course, I would never be able to vote for any legislation that punished dreamers like that. But there are more stringent kinds of things, like an H.R. 2 that I was willing to vote for. And I even been on record saying, even though that the Republicans tanked that immigration bill, but I was saying, hey, let's continue this conversation. There's parts of H.R. 2 that I think are reasonable as well, too.
You're now suggesting you're not a quote-unquote progressive and don't want that label. Why not, and how would you label yourself?
That's just not true. I've been saying that for years.
Okay.
That's not new, and that's not new news.
I have recent headlines that say your stances lately, quote, excites Republicans. Should they be excited about you, and should Democrats be worried?
No, I don't really understand the question. I haven't really adopted any kinds of radical positions on anything. I think it's reasonable for a Democrat to be supportive of Israel or a secure border, and I have no intention to become a Manchin or a Cinnamon or anything like that. I'm just a regular Democrat.
Is part of the partisan problem we're having that many people perceive that if you're a Democrat, you have to support everything every Democrat does and criticize everything every Republican does and vice versa? And maybe it's not a bad idea that we recognize sometimes people on your team aren't going the way you would like, and maybe sometimes we can applaud people on the other team. Talk about that in regards to the partisanship we're dealing with.
That's true, but there's a truth here in D.C. that nothing gets accomplished if it's not bipartisan kinds of consensus, and that's what's true as well. And there's some things that I can't agree with, like choice, for example. But there's other things that I can and I want to be a part of those kinds of solution. We can't forget that if you want to get America better, that has to be done in a bipartisan way.
Coming up, Senator Fetterman reacts to criticism over his response to chaos in a House committee meeting.
This PA Chamber Minute is paid for by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry.
The PA Chamber works to make Pennsylvania more competitive. Our advocacy efforts have delivered major returns for the business community over the past several years, resulting in over $31 billion in total savings. This comes out to a savings of nearly 4,800 $825 per employee for businesses of all sizes across all sectors everywhere in Pennsylvania. From preventing harmful tax increases to winning historic victories for small businesses, the PA Chamber is on the front lines of making Pennsylvania more competitive. Every dollar saved is another dollar that can be reinvested in our communities and economy. But we need your help to continue this important work. Visit pachamber.org to find out how you can become a member, get involved in our mission, and start saving today.
A few women in the House traded insults about their appearance last month during a hearing. You took to social media to say it's worse than a Jerry Springer show, at which point AOC over in the House criticized you on social media for not coming to the defense of a fellow Democrat whose appearance was questioned. Philly Inquirer columnist Janice Armstrong said, hey, progressives supported you when you were battling health issues and at your unconventional appearance that you should have returned the favor. What do you say to that criticism?
Oh, well, if anyone that was involved on the committee was proud of what they produced there, that's up to them. And I didn't respond to anything other than what MTJ had started. And again, if they want to feed the troll, they're welcome to do that.
You say social media is, for the most part, bad for mental health, but your account continues to troll some other lawmakers, and with heavy sarcasm. Many people find it funny, but some could argue that you're impacting their mental health and perhaps bullying. And shouldn't the senator who has publicly battled mental health issues and brought awareness to the issue be above that and perhaps be held to a higher standard?
I'm not sure if I agree that I'm like overly sarcastic or anything on Twitter. And mental health is never necessarily made better on spending on time on social media. But I don't believe that the conversations that I have on social media about supporting Israel or the border deal and those things, I think that contributes to the dialogue here about different issues.
Do you do your own social media, or is that your staff mostly doing that?
Well, I think everything is a mix on that. There's some things that come directly from me, and then there's other parts that are part of the staff and after our conversation.
Still ahead, Senator Fetterman is focusing on helping people stay in their homes and explains his inspiration for his home repair program. I know that food and housing are two of your top priorities as a senator. Let's start with food. Food stamps, SNAP benefits, top priority for you, but recent reports show that they are vulnerable to scammers, and there are critics who say the entitlement's being abused by people who shouldn't be getting them. They're too expensive. Just what's your response to that? And then I also know you're very concerned about it in the Farm Bill.
Yeah, well, what I am really concerned is that there are food insecure Pennsylvanians or anyone across the nation. And as the chair of the subcommittee of nutrition that oversees SNAP and other that, I've been very clear that I will not allow the Republicans to try to cut SNAP. I don't think that's the right way to go to going after people that are hungry. And I've been very clear about that. And that's part of a solid democratic value there. It's the things that I've been voting and that I stand up. And to that point, it's like if someone's being scammed off of that, that's another issue as well. I have witnessed, including the work that my wife does in my own community about food insecurity and why anybody would stand in line or would participate in a program like this if they're on a take or a scam. It's not. They're doing that because they're hungry. And I can't imagine why anybody would want to cut that.
A fellow Pennsylvanian, Glenn G.T. Thompson, is actually the guy heading that Farm Bill. It's very important for America and Pennsylvania. What are your in the House? What are your concerns? Are you comfortable with where that bill is? Or what are your concerns about it? And what are you especially looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not here to say anything. I mean, he's very committed to this, and he understands that the Farm Bill is very important. And I agree, but I've been very clear that I'm willing to jam it up to the extent that I'm able to do if they go after SNAP or hungry Pennsylvanians.
Let's talk about whole home repair, which is a bill we have in Pennsylvania, as you know, helping folks get some money to fix their homes up when they otherwise can't afford it. You want to bring that to the federal level. Why, and what do you see as the benefit? Yeah,
well, let's talk about the genius behind it originally. State Senator Saval outside of Philadelphia. Now let's talk about bipartisanship. He's a very, very left former colleague of mine, and I was actually blown away that here's a guy coming from a very left district in Philadelphia, created something that excited very conservative members of the Pennsylvania Senate. And they both agreed that we want to keep Pennsylvanians in their home, especially the elderly, those that aren't able to afford these kinds of repairs. And they suddenly think, hey, this is great in red county or blue county. And then I said, if I'm able to be here in Washington, D.C. to scale that up, and that's exactly what we're doing as well, too. And my bill is now have been sponsored by Republicans as well, because they understand that too. Even Wyoming, my colleague from Wyoming, she's very conservative, and we have some differences on politics, but we all agree that people deserve to have the dignity of remaining in their homes.
Affordable housing, we do a lot of reporting on the fact that that is a problem. We see new developments popping up in our area, but they're housing at $400,000 or $500,000, and that's certainly not affordable for people on low income. What can you at the federal level do to deal with the affordable housing issue?
Yeah, well, we need to have to remember that we have to cut the red tape, and we need to be producing these kinds of affordable housing more cheaply, and maybe for if the private sector as well. And then there's other things we can explore, like prefab kinds of things, and especially more in rural counties where affordable housing is a challenge as well too.
So we're talking housing and food stamps and lots of things the government can do, but the federal government has a $34 trillion debt and a structural deficit. Can you point to any programs that should be cut to help the U.S. balance its books, and are you concerned about those two numbers of debt and deficit?
Well, sure, of course. Things that I don't support, like the Trump administration had over $2 trillion in corporate taxes, and they used most of that money to buy back their own stocks and cash dividends as well. I can't support that. And I'm also a very strong supporter of the defense. I'm not talking that we can cut the defense budget or anything. And I'm not going to touch Social Security as well, too. It's a more complicated, unlike the Republicans. Like Donald Trump has been willing to talk to you about cutting Social Security and things. So it's a bipartisan conversation that we have to have. But until one side will continue to weaponize that one way or another on the other thing, it's like, let's have an honest conversation and not bullshit and pretend that we have to come together and do it.
Abortion's been a winning electoral issue for Democrats in the past couple of cycles, but in Pennsylvania, another shun seems to have overtaken them in terms of importance: inflation. That doesn't seem to bode well for President Biden's reelection. Polls suggest Donald Trump leading in PA. What do you make of that? Does that concern you?
What I said before is regardless of what those polls are, if someone's up a couple points or down a couple points, it's going to be very close. I've been having the same conversation since 2016. During my first race, I realized that Donald Trump has made a connection with people in Red County, Pennsylvania, and it's going to be something we need to be concerned. And then that changed the world in 2016. And then I said the same thing in 2020, that it's going to be very, very challenging, and Joe Biden prevailed. And that's what it's going to be like here. It's going to come down to that very stark choice. I don't think it's going to come down to one specific kinds of issues or how much money who has more in this race. It's that gut check in Pennsylvania and in the nation. It's like, do I want 4 more years of that hot mess, or do we want 4 years of an economy that is absolutely is the envy of the world?
Do you understand, as a fellow who energized young people, why young voters especially aren't inspired by either one of these choices, as between, what they see as 2 old guys?
Sure. I mean, it's not necessary to have somebody think that's the dream boat, But it's again that very stark choices as well too. I have to believe that if I'm a young person, that Joe Biden would be closer to what your ideal. And then on the other side, people, that's their guy. I'll never understand anything like that.
Do you think Joe Biden will serve a full term if elected?
Well, of course. And let's address that. As you and I just, we talked about, we had a difficult race. That happened to be the biggest race in that cycle at the time. But Joe Biden was running for president in the middle of that crucible of 2020, and he held every line and has ever since. Like he's really a tough. Yeah, keep it. We'll keep it PG-13. And you followed that race very closely, and some people said nobody wants to be seen with Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, or I'm not going to campaign with him. I've done a couple events with him. I was proud to stand with him.
What if I said you can't pick Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? What Democrat would you choose to run for president?
I want Joe Biden. I do want Joe Biden.
Senator Fetterman has made it his mission to legalize recreational marijuana in Pennsylvania for the past several years. Coming up, why he believes it still hasn't happened. Lastly, legalizing marijuana. It is not yet legal in Pennsylvania. Many of our neighbors have.
Have you heard that I'm pro-legal? You know, like I was Pennsylvania.
I think you and I have been talking about this for about 6 years.
Yeah, I was the stoner that doesn't even actually smoke. But no, I mean, I had that conversation 5 years ago. In fact, we would have wrapped it up about 5 years ago. And so I don't know why it hasn't happened. Well, I think it's the Republicans. It's the same answer there. But thing has changed during my time as lieutenant governor that my colleague in the state Senate introduced on the Republican side to legalize weed. That's the first time that's ever happened. And then I saluted him for that, and I just would like to see it brought to fruition.
Last question might seem like a silly question, but you don't seem to have a happy-go-lucky, just general demeanor to you. Are you happy as a senator from Pennsylvania and here in Washington?
I don't have a happy demeanor.
Or stern. You can come across as stern, tall, dark, and stormy kind of guy.
What comes along as dark and stormy?
Are you a happy fella? Do you like what you're doing?
I'm just literally joking with you in here. I'm not sure I get that, but no, I'm just grateful to be here and having this conversation with everyone. Hey, Dad, you know he'll be proud, of course. But no, I'm a lucky guy. I'm grateful to be here, and
thanks for joining us for this special edition from our nation's capital. Next week, we'll be back in the state capitol. And remember, if you miss an episode of This Week in Pennsylvania, you can find it on thisweekinpennsylvania.com. Have a great day, everybody.